This is a normal Android phone. But right now, it's not running Android. It's running Windows 11 natively on my phone. And I'm not talking about a launcher or remote desktop. This is actual Windows. I can write code, run ADB commands, install Steam, and even play PC games on it. And the crazy part is, if I connect a USB hub, this phone can behave like a full desktop computer. Keyboard, mouse, network adapter, storage devices, everything works. So today I'm going to show you how powerful this setup actually is, what works, what breaks, and whether a phone can realistically replace a computer. But first, let's actually use it. The first thing I wanted to test wasn't gaming, it was coding. Because if this thing can actually run development tools, that changes everything. So I installed Google Antigravity, and I didn't configure anything. No extensions, no environment setup. My goal was simple. Use vibe coding to generate my portfolio website. So I wrote a prompt. Let's see if it actually works. Alright, it's processing, and wait, it's generating files. Look at this. It already created HTML and CSS files automatically. And remember, I didn't install any extensions in VS Code yet. So instead of configuring anything, let's just open it directly in Chrome. And wow, that actually looks really good. It literally generated a complete portfolio page for me. And honestly, this is the first time I've created a portfolio for myself. I haven't even updated my resume in years. So yeah, tools like VS Code and Antigravity IDE actually run surprisingly well here. Earlier, I even tried Flutter development, and that also worked. It was slower, obviously, but the fact that Flutter runs on a phone running Windows is already insane. Now you might be wondering, how is this even possible? The reason is, this is Windows for ARM. The same version of Windows that runs on Snapdragon X Elite laptops. So instead of forcing traditional Windows designed for Intel CPUs, this setup runs a version of Windows that is built for ARM processors. That's why it actually runs smoothly on this Snapdragon phone. And surprisingly, a lot of hardware works too. For example, Bluetooth works, Wi-Fi works, and even mobile data works through the SIM card. Yes, this phone has a SIM card inside it, and Windows can actually use it for internet. Unfortunately, Windows doesn't support phone calls, but there are workarounds that can enable that. Another interesting thing is the orientation sensor. If I rotate the phone, Windows rotates with it, just like Android, which is actually very useful because some tools don't work properly in portrait mode. And since I'm using this setup for coding, testing projects, and managing this YouTube channel, staying organized becomes really important. As you saw earlier in my portfolio, I actually work a regular 9-to-5 job. And on top of that, I'm also working on multiple personal projects like this channel and experiments, such as running Windows on phones. Managing all of that can get messy really quickly. You have emails coming in, notes in Notion, video ideas, scripts, work tasks. Everything ends up scattered across different apps. So to keep everything organized, I've been using Akiflow, which is the sponsor of today's video. Akiflow basically works like a productivity command center that combines your tasks and calendar into one place. One feature I really like is the universal inbox. It connects with tools like Gmail, Notion, Slack, Todoist, and more, and pulls tasks from all of them into a single inbox so you don't have to jump between different apps. From there, I can simply drag tasks onto my calendar and block time for them. For example, I can schedule time for testing this Windows setup, recording the video, editing, or working on other projects. Akiflow also includes an AI copilot that can help organize tasks automatically, and a stats dashboard that shows how you're spending time across different projects. If you're juggling multiple projects like I am, definitely check out Akiflow using my link in the description and see if it improves your workflow. They also provide a one-on-one onboarding session to help you get started. So I went ahead and installed Steam on this phone. And honestly, just seeing Steam open up on a device that was originally meant to run Android already feels a bit unreal. Once you log in, it basically behaves like a normal PC. You can access your entire library, browse the store, and download games directly from Steam. Technically, you can install any game from your Steam library, just like on a regular computer. But there are some limitations. Since this setup relies on Windows emulation layer, not every game will run perfectly. Older or lightweight games usually work quite well, but modern AAA titles or very demanding games will obviously struggle or may not run properly. Now, I'm not really much of a gamer, but I still wanted to test a few games to see how far this setup could go. So I started with Brawlhalla, mainly because it's free, lightweight, and usually a good way to see how well a system can handle PC games. And surprisingly, it runs perfectly. Then I tried something more interesting. I installed GTA San Andreas, and as you can see, it runs really well. We're getting 40+ frames per second, which is honestly impressive for a phone running Windows. But here's where things get interesting. Because most PC games are designed for a different processor architecture, Windows has to translate those instructions in real time so they can run on this device. That's why many older PC games can still run here without too many issues. But then I tried another game, Playdead's Inside, and this one barely ran. It took almost 5 minutes just to launch, and once it opened, the performance was around 1 or 2 frames per second. So why does GTA run fine, but this game doesn't? The reason is fairly simple. Older games like GTA San Andreas use very simple DirectX 9 graphics and relatively low system requirements, which makes them much easier to run through emulation. This device currently supports DirectX 11, so those older rendering pipelines work without much trouble. But newer games rely on more complex shaders, lighting systems, and modern graphics pipelines. And right now, the Adreno GPU drivers for Windows are still experimental, so those advanced features don't perform well yet. Now, let's try something fun. Let's turn this phone into a full desktop computer. I connected a USB hub to the phone. First, I plugged in a USB keyboard, then a Realtek network adapter. My Bluetooth mouse is already connected. And look at that, Windows recognizes all of them. Everything is working. Now let's try something else. I connected another Android phone. At first, it didn't show any file transfer options. Maybe Windows wasn't supplying enough power, so yes. This setup can handle multiple USB devices at the same time, just like a normal PC. Now I installed Android platform tools. Let's see if ADB works. And yes, it works perfectly, which means I can actually develop Android apps from this phone. In fact, last year I even used this setup to flash firmware on a Samsung phone, using a phone running Windows. That's honestly ridiculous. And because this is full Windows, I can also multitask normally. Open multiple apps, watch YouTube in 2K and 4K, browse the web, run development tools. The speakers work fine. But yes, the phone does heat up quite a bit, which is expected because the cooling system inside this phone was never designed to run Windows. Now let's talk about performance. I ran Geekbench 6. The benchmark took around 15 minutes to finish, but the result was actually impressive. This Snapdragon 845 phone performed roughly similar to a 4th or 5th generation Intel i3 processor. And remember, this phone only has 6 GB of RAM, which shows how powerful modern phone processors actually are. For example, I'm recording this video on an iPhone 16 Pro, and Apple's latest MacBook Neos use the same A18 Pro chips, which are based on the same ARM architecture used in smartphones. So modern phones are already extremely powerful computers. The real limitation is not the hardware, it's the software restrictions imposed by manufacturers. Bootloaders are locked, drivers are restricted, operating systems are limited, and projects like this exist because developers push those limits. Honestly, the people working on Windows on phones deserve a lot of credit. And the best part is this phone supports dual boot. With one click, I can reboot back into Android, and on the Android side, I'm using Pixel OS ROM. So this device is basically 2 computers in one, an Android phone and a Windows PC. So you might be wondering how this whole thing is even possible. The main reason is Windows on ARM, which is basically a version of Windows built for ARM processors like the Snapdragon chip inside this phone. But phones normally can't boot Windows directly. That's where Project Renegade comes in. It's a community project where developers made it possible to run Windows on Snapdragon-based Android phones by building custom drivers, boot configurations, and tools that make this whole setup possible. They also created a custom UEFI environment, which basically allows the phone to boot operating systems the same way a normal PC does. Once that UEFI loads, the phone can start Windows on ARM, and that's how this entire setup works. Right now, the list of supported devices is still pretty small, and in this video, I'm running it on the Poco F1. If you want to try this setup yourself, I already made a full step-by-step installation guide on this channel, so you can check that video out after this one. And honestly, projects like this show just how powerful modern smartphones have become. Also, if you want a better way to organize your tasks, manage your schedule, and use time blocking to plan your work more effectively, check out Akiflow using the link in the description, and you can even book a one-on-one onboarding call where their team helps you get started. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.